In today's video, we're going to be rebuilding Tesla's website with Otter Blocks. Now this video is for educational purposes only, and all images and assets used are originally owned and created by Tesla, and we are using them solely for presentation purposes. We won't be rebuilding every single part of this site, but we'll tackle the homepage and then move on to a different page later on. We may not be able to achieve an exact replication of this website, but we should get close enough. Also, we'll not be rebuilding this mega menu, but I've already gone ahead and created something similar using Divi. Now, you'll also need to go ahead and download the website's images to your computer first. So you just need to right-click and click on Save Image As, and then choose a suitable location on your computer. Now, this is one method, but depending on what you choose, you may have to convert the images to JPEGs or WebP or something. We may also have to use Inspect Element to view some HTML or CSS information from time to time. But another option is to use this Chrome extension called CSS Pepper to get the same information. Now, if we go to WordPress, we'll see that I already have Otter Blocks installed. And if I click on it, I'll be taken to their dashboard and we'll see that I have the Pro version installed. We can use the free version, but Pro gives us access to Otter's entire block library and also unlocks all of its features. Alright, so let's begin building. We're going to create a new page and we're going to call this page Home. And right away, I'm going to go to this N icon since I'm using Divi and I'm going to disable the title. Now, once the title is disabled, we can start building our layout. So we'll start by adding a section block. We'll just drag it and we'll get a full section. And that's basically one column. And the next thing we need to do is configure our section's alignment. So I'm going to click on the section and ensure that it's set to full width. Now we can begin adding our elements. So let's start by adding an advanced heading block by Otter. And we'll need to get the text content from the Tesla website. So we'll go to the website and we'll copy the heading. And once we have it, we can go back to the editor and paste it. Now we'll need to center align our heading and also make it an H1. And also we'll need to click on this icon to open our block settings. And I'll also go ahead and repeat this process for the other content. Now with the list view open, we need to highlight and select all of the elements and add a stack. And once it's stacked, we'll go ahead and center align the stack. Now right away, we'll need to work on this heading. I can already see that we'll need to go to the Style tab. And in the Dimensions tab, we'll need to remove the bottom margin. Alright, so once it's removed, I think it looks a lot better. Now we'll need to select our section and we'll go back to the Style tab. We'll go to Background and Content, then Background, and we'll click on the Image tab, and here we can either upload an image or click on Media Library. And since I already have it uploaded, I'm going to click on the Model 3 image and I'm going to click on Select. And the next step is to expand the length of our section. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the Settings tab. And here we'll need to go ahead and adjust our minimum height. So let's change it from default to custom. And next we'll need to go to the corner of the field to change the unit from pixels to viewport height. So now our custom height will now be 100 VH. Now we'll go to the Style tab, then Background, and we'll change the background settings. We just need to change the background size to cover. Alright, so we can see the difference. It now fits well within our section. We can also use the focal point picker to change the focus of the image. We can now move back to our content and I'm going to click on the heading and I'll go ahead and change its color to white. We can also apply a custom font size. So let's make this 56 pixels. And we'll also go ahead and change the font family. So we'll click on this icon and we'll select font family and variant. Let's also do letter spacing. Now for the font family, we can use something similar to what's on the actual website. I'm just going to go ahead and use Enter. Now for the variance, which is basically the font weight, I'll use 700. We can now set our letter spacing to -1. And of course, this is different from what we have on the main website, but I think it looks close enough. Now we're going to move on to the next piece of content and I'm going to change its size to about 28 pixels, which is what it is on Tesla.com. And I'm also going to go ahead and turn on the appearance option. Now in appearance, I'll select semi-bold. All right, once that is done, we can go ahead and change its text color to white and we'll move on to the next item. This one should be white as well. And we may need to go to the real website to find the text size. I'm just going to go ahead and use CSS Pepper to do so. And we can see here that it's 17 pixels. So we'll just go back to our editor and click on this settings icon and we'll make it 17 pixels. Now we also need to add a spacing above the stack to separate this heading from our navigation bar. So I'm just going to add a spacer here and I'll move it all the way to the top. But I just want to make sure also that it's not within the stack. It has to be above the stack. So it has to be outside of it, but above it. And I'll also set its height to about 150 pixels. Okay, I think that's fine, but we can always preview it to see how it looks. So here it is. And if we look above the heading, we'll see the menu that I built using Neve. And again, it's quite simple, but it's just so that we can have something simple while building. All right, so now we can move on to the next part, which is adding the buttons. I'm just going to go ahead and search for the button group from Otter Blocks. And I'll drag this inside of our section, but outside of the stack. And if we view our layers, we'll see exactly where it's positioned. Now we need to take a quick look at the website to get our button text. So let's go back to the site and we'll see that it says Order Now and Demo Drive. So we'll go back to our editor and start typing the labels. The first one is Order Now. And if we click on the plus, we'll add another button and call this one Demo Drive. Moving on, we'll need to style our button. So we'll click on the first one and that will open its settings on the right. We'll open the style tab, then go back to the Tesla website to get the button colors. So let's get the first one, which is Order Now, and we just need to select it and copy its shortcode in CSS Pepper. Now we'll go back to the editor and for the background, we'll change it to the color that we just copied. And we need to change the hover color as well. So we're going to click on the hover tab. We'll click on background and we'll change it to the same color. Now, in my case, I can see a slight opacity change on hover, and this is most likely a theme default, and we can always use CSS to change it, but in this case, I'm just going to keep it. All right, so now we need to start working on our second button. So I'll go back to Tesla's website, and here again, I'm just going to go ahead and grab the color information for these buttons, and I'm going to go ahead and apply these colors in our editor, and it's basically the same steps that we followed earlier. So again, we can see this slight opacity change when we hover over our button, and that's fine. So now we're going to go to our button group and we're just going to go ahead and adjust the size. So we'll go to the style tab on the right hand side and let's adjust our padding value. So we're going to go ahead and unlink the padding. We'll make the top and bottom padding 8 pixels and the left and right padding will be 60. Now we need to check the space between the buttons. So on the website, we can see that it's about 16 pixels. So we're just going to go back to our editor and I'll change space between to 16. Now we'll also set the border radius for each button. So I'm going to click on the first one and in borders and shadow, I'm going to go ahead and change the border radius to 4 pixels. And we're also going to do the same for the other button. So again, border and box shadow and make the border radius 4 pixels. All right, so now that we have a border radius for our buttons, we need to center align it. So we're going to click on the button group and we'll just go ahead and align this center. Okay, so the buttons are not in the position that we want them to be in. So we're going to go ahead and put a space in between. So to add a spacer block again, I'm going to click on the plus icon and I'll search for the spacer. And we just want to drag this inside of our section and position it between the stack and the button. Now our space needs to be adjusted. So I'm going to click on the handle and drag it all the way down. And since we're doing this by eye, we just want to keep dragging it until it seems like it's in the same position as the one on the real website. Now, once we preview it, we'll see that it's still a bit far off. So we'll go back to our editor to continue adjusting it. I'm also noticing that the font in our heading has changed. So I'm just going to go ahead and investigate this. And if we look at the font family, we'll see that it's still set to enter. But if we go back to our website preview, we'll see that it's the default font. So we're going to go back to the editor and let's see what happens if we publish the page instead. Now we'll click on the view page link to visit our site and let's see what happens. We can now see that our font has changed to enter. All right, so let's go ahead and continue fine-tuning the position of our button. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the page and I'll open the preview one more time to see if anything changes. And I'll go back to our editor to continue adjusting our spacer block. And I'm also going to speed up this part since it's quite a mundane process doing this by eye. So it's a lot of trial and error and the final value is about 660 pixels. Now that's close enough to what they have on the main website. So we're going to keep this as is. All right, so we have finished creating our first section, which is for the Model 3. We can always go back to the Tesla website to compare it to what we have. And I think it's safe to say that we can use what we have as a template for the remaining sections. So all we would need to do is copy and replace the content on the page. So I think the next section is actually the model Y. So we're going to go ahead and recreate this one. We'll do the model X and S. Then we'll stop there and move on to a different page. So let's create a template from our first section. I'm going to open the list view and I'll select the first section and I'm going to go ahead and rename it. Let's call it model 3 and we'll click on the save button. Now we need to go ahead and duplicate this section. So I'm going to click on this 3 dots and click on duplicate. And now we have another instance of the model 3 section, which I'm going to rename to model S. Okay, so now I'm going to duplicate this one and I'll go ahead and rename the duplicate to model Y. So I'm just going to go ahead and rename and rearrange these sections so that they show up in the correct order. All right, so once they are arranged, we can start replacing their content. So in the second section, I'm going to replace this 3 with a Y. And I'll also grab the second line of text and I'll go back to the editor to replace it. And there is no need to do this because I'm now realizing that the text was the same. So let's move on to the third line, which is the price. So again, we'll go to tesla.com and we'll grab the third line and replace it in our editor. Now with our section selected, we need to go to the style tab and then our background settings to change it to the background of the Model X. So once it's selected, we can go ahead and preview our website to see how it looks so far. And I think it looks pretty good, so we can go ahead and move on to our next section, which is the Model X. So as we can see on this section, the text with the price is bigger. So we're just going to go ahead and grab it and we'll go back to our editor. And we just want to replace the 3 here with an X. So we'll also move the price up. And we need to change the size as well. So let's make it about 28 pixels. We need to work on the next line as well. So let's go back to the Tesla website and I'm just going to go ahead and see what font size this is. So let's use CSS Pepper to inspect it. And I don't think we clicked on the right thing. So let's go back and click on the text itself. So here we can see that it's 17 pixels and it just has a different font weight from the ones in the previous sections. So we'll go back to our editor and I'm going to highlight the text with the price. And I'm going to turn on the appearance property and set it to semi-bold. And I'm also going to replace this text with what we copied. And of course, the font is still too big. So we just need to go ahead and apply a custom font. So in this menu, I'm going to make this 17 pixels. And I'm also going to go ahead and break this line the same way it's done in the real website. Now, our final step for this section will be to go ahead and apply the Model X background. So I'm going to click on Manage Image and open Media Library. And I'm going to find the Model X image and apply it. All right, so I think that's looking good so far. Now let's go ahead and preview everything to see how they look together. So these are all of the sections that we have so far. And the final one we're going to do is the Model S. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the process of creating the final section since we have covered all of the steps. And once we're done, we can finally go ahead and preview everything to compare it to the actual Tesla website. All right, so this is what we did, and I think we got close enough. And unfortunately, we're not recreating every single section, but you can always go ahead and try it on your own. Okay, so I'll go back to the editor and save this, and then we'll open our page in a new incognito window to view it without the WordPress toolbar at the top. Okay, so here it is, and there's one more thing that we need to address on this page, and we're gonna go ahead and tackle it right now. So if we go ahead and scroll through our page and we take a look at the line of the price, we'll see a number aligned above the others, which is better known as superscript. Now by default, it'll be bigger than what you'll find on the Tesla website. So these are really small compared to what we have by default. And I'm going to open the inspect window to view its HTML tag. Now I already know it's sup as in SUP, but this is how you can find it. Now if we look on the highlighted line, we'll see its tab. And if you find the inspect window to be daunting, you can always use CSS Pepper to do the same thing. So right away, we can see its size is 7 pixels as well. And I'm going to show you how you can apply this size to all of your superscript using some code, which you can find in the description down below. I'll open the customizer. And as soon as the page loads, I'm going to go to additional CSS all the way at the bottom. And here you'll see that I already have this code entered. So we're basically targeting our superscript and we're applying a font size of 7 pixels. So if we remove the code, we'll see the default size of the element. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it back. And once again, you can find this code in the description down below. So now we can publish our page. And once it's published, we can move on to the second part of this video where we try to rebuild a different page. So we'll scroll all the way down to the bottom and click on Get Updates. And this is what we're going to try to rebuild using Otter Blocks. And we'll be focusing mainly on the form block for this. So we'll return to our edit window. We'll save what we have so far. And I'm also going to jump to our WordPress dashboard to begin the next part of the video. So once again, this is what we're trying to achieve. And again, we may not get a complete replication, but we should be close. All right, so if we go back to our dashboard, we'll start by creating a new page. And I'm going to call this one Get Updates. Now, right away, I'm going to go ahead and disable this title. And then we can move on to start working on its structure. So I'm going to go ahead and add a cover block. And we need to add a black background. Okay, now in the list view, I'm going to go ahead and make this full width. And then we'll click on this toggle full height icon. We'll also delete this paragraph, and then we'll add a section block. Now let's open the block settings by clicking here, and then we're going to go ahead and click on the plus, and next we'll search for the section block. We'll just drag and drop it on our page, and then we'll open the list view to position it inside of the cover. Okay, so we need two columns, and we need to set our content width, so let's click on the section. Now on the right hand side, I'll go to section structure and set the width to 1170. We'll center align it, and then we'll go ahead and add an image block on the left. We're going to be using the regular image block, so type in image and click on image, then go to media library and select the model 3. I'll click on select again, and in the second column, we'll add a form block. So type in form and select Otter's form block. Now for this, I'm using the contact form template. Now I'm going to select the column, and on the right hand side, I'm going to change the column width to 30. All right, so now we have a similar size to what's on the real website. We can also drag our image handle to adjust its size. Okay, so now we'll go to our cover block, then we'll go to our style tab and we'll add some padding. So I'm going to unlink it and select the top one. And then we can move this slider to adjust the padding, or we can simply click on this icon to set a custom value. I think we can use about 8 REM. So let's preview our page to see how that looks. I don't think it looks too bad, but we'll check back when we have more content. All right, so back in the editor, we'll go ahead and add an advanced heading block from Otter. And right now it's positioned outside of the form, so we are just going to go ahead and drag it inside right above the form. We'll go back and get the text which says stay connected. We'll copy and paste it in our heading field. Okay, we can begin formatting it right away, so let's go to style. And here we are going to turn on the font family property as well as the variant property. And for the font family, we'll go ahead and use Inter. We'll also change our variant to 600. Okay, now the text is already white, so we don't need to change it, but we need to get the size of the heading. So let's go back to the Tesla website and we'll use CSS Pepper to find the size of the heading. All right, so it's 28 pixels and the color really is white. So we can just go back to our editor and we'll change the size to 28 pixels. Now below stay connected, there's a paragraph that we need to add. So I'm just going to hover below this and click on the plus. I'll add a paragraph block and I'm going to go back to the website. We'll copy this paragraph and we can already see the font size as well as the fill color. So if we go back, we can paste it under the heading. Then we'll go to the style tab for the block and apply the fill color. And we can also apply that typography value that we saw. I'm going to click on this settings icon here and enter 14 pixels. Okay, now if we double click below this message field, we're going to highlight this paragraph, and here we just want to go ahead and change the text color. So for this, we need to go back to the actual website and we can use CSS Pepper to find the hex code. So let's just scroll and copy it. And once we have it, we can go back to the editor and we'll change the font size first, which is 12 pixels. And then we'll go ahead and change the text color to what we copied. Okay, let's move on to the next step, which is alignment. So on Tesla's website, this text is actually center aligned. And this is how it looks, but I personally think that it looks better if it's left aligned. So if we change it back, we can just compare the difference. So I'm going to keep it left aligned, but at least you know how to center align it if you need to. Now, in terms of the positioning of this text, if you want to, you can go to the list view and simply drag it outside of the form, but keep it inside of the column. So right here should be fine, right here. Okay, and again, if you want to center align it to have it similar to what Tesla has, you can always do so. And of course, this isn't the exact content that Tesla has on their website, but I'm sure you can understand the concept. Alright, so let's go ahead and start working on our form. Alright, so let's move over to the left-hand side and select the form. We need to get rid of the borders, so we'll go to the Style tab. And in the border section, we'll set the width to 0. Next, we'll go to Labels to apply a custom size. We'll need to get this from the website. It's 14 pixels. And we can also copy this color right away. We'll go back and set the font size. And right above this, if we click on Label in the color section, we can apply the color that we copied. Now, let's also grab the filled color. And we have two. We have both the fill and the background. So fill is for the input and background is for the field. So for input field, let's enter the fill color, which is 6Es. And for the input background, we can enter the hex code with the 6 2s. Now we need to delete this message field. So in our editor, I'm going to go ahead and select its layer. I'll click on the 3 dots and delete it. And before I forget, let's adjust our heading. There is some margin that I need to remove. So I'm going to click on the heading, and in dimensions, I'm going to change the bottom margin to 0. And I'm going to go ahead and select the form block. Now in the block settings on the right, I'll click on settings, and I'm going to click on add input field a few times until I get about 3 fields. I'm going to drag a new one below the name field, and I'm going to call it last name. And I'm going to rename the one above it to first name. I'll also rename email address. Then I'll add zip code and select interests. Now for select interests, we'll change our label type to checkbox. And then we'll begin adding the options for the select interest field. So I'm going to go ahead and add the first one, which is Model S, and I'm going to add a few more options to complete the list. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth between the editor and the Tesla website to get the correct names and the correct order. And I think our list looks fine, so I'm going to go ahead and check out the input fields. And here you'll find options to fine-tune the look of your input fields. And here we have a padding of 8 pixels, but I don't think it looks bad at all. Although the size is a bit different from Tesla's, but I think it's fine. We're not trying to achieve a perfect replication. And I don't think we have enough space between our content and the header, so we need to go ahead and adjust this. So we'll click on our cover block, we'll go to the styling tab, and I think we'll need to adjust our padding to 9 rem. And this is just the top padding. Let's add some bottom padding. We'll use 9 rem as well. And if you're more comfortable with a different unit, you can always select it from this list. So if we preview what we have, we'll see that the spacing now looks a lot better. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to left align this text and I'm going to drag it inside of the form above the button. And I think that's just the best position for it, but feel free to keep it below. Now in our form tab, if we go to settings, we'll be able to configure our form's functionality as well. So for example, in our form options, we can add an email to address and an email subject. We can select a location for our leads, and we can also connect our form to MailChimp or Brevo. Now, if you want to customize your submit messages, you can do so in the next tab. You can write both a success and error message. Now, the final thing we're going to do is customize this submit button. So we're going to go to our style tab. We'll scroll down to button and we'll see our options. Now here, I'm going to go and apply some padding values to the left and right. We'll use 120 pixels. We'll add this value to both sides. We're just doing this by eye, and of course it could be a bit longer, but I guess you get the concept. Now let's go ahead and change the background. We'll go to tesla.com and we'll just grab the button color using CSS Pepper. This one is for the normal state, so we'll go and plug it in. We'll need to get the one for the hover state as well. So I'm going to hover over the button and memorize the hex code that shows. I'm now going to go ahead and manually enter this in the hover background field. Okay, so let's test our hover state. Okay, I think that looks fine. So I think we can now go ahead and publish our page. We're going to view it in incognito mode so that we don't have the WordPress toolbar. So here it is, and I think we got pretty close. Alright, so we have now come to the end of our tutorial. Thank you for watching this rebuild video. And if you like what you saw and you think Otter Blocks can be useful for your own projects, be sure to check them out. I'll leave links in the description down below. So thank you for watching, subscribe if you haven't, and let us know which rebuild you'd like to see next in the comments down below. Take care and see you next time.